we are back. Welcome to my third and final European video of the week. This is my preview and predictions for Matchday 5 of the UEFA Europa Conference League. A reminder that you still have time to check out all of my thoughts on today's Champions League matches and tomorrow's Europa League matches. Link to both of those videos are available at the top of your screen right now. But today, we are going to be focusing on the other competition taking place tomorrow, which is, of course, the UEFA Europa Conference League. And before we get into it, I am just going to say ahead of this is another very, very tough week of fixtures to call. So as always, I'm going to do my best to break down all the possible connotations that could happen over the course of these matches. And as always, if you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you enjoy all of my preview and prediction series. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with notifications turned on. Domestic club football will be returning for you this weekend, which means we'll have Premier League and La Liga videos coming out for you on Friday morning. And of course, we will be starting our African Cup of Nations previews and predictions next week as well. So make sure you are subscribed with those notifications turned on so you don't miss out on any of the action we've got coming up for you over the course of the next couple of weeks. Without any further ado then, these are the early kickoffs that are going to be taking place tomorrow night, as we always do. Early kickoffs first, then we go through the community polls for all of these fixtures, and then we do the later kickoffs and then the community polls once again. A reminder, you can still check out all of the community polls for this weekend's Premier League and La Liga matches over on our community page. Links will be available down in the description. But now, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. As I said already, it's a very, very tough week in the Europa Conference League, but we're going to do our best, and we'll start things off right down the bottom of the table, where we have Breidablik taking on Shamrock Rovers, where unfortunately, there really isn't a lot to say about this match because both of these sides' domestic seasons have already finished. So the last time these two sides played was their previous matches on Matchday 4 in the Conference League. Last time out, Breidablik were able to get a draw here against the former or current still league leaders in Samsunspor. For Shamrock Rovers, it was a home defeat to Shakhtar Donetsk. Like I've said, neither side has played since, so it's been 2 weeks of rest for both of these sides, which obviously means no fresh injury concerns, and thankfully for both sides, we have no fresh suspension concerns either. What we do have, though, which could make things a little bit easier for us to call, is we actually have a recent head-to-head record between these two sides, because these two sides actually met in Champions League qualification back in 2023, where on that occasion, Breidablik won here in Iceland and away in Ireland. So with all of that combined, and of course that result against Samsunspor last time out, I have got to go for an Icelandic victory to start off today's video. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Breidablik. Next up, we are off to Kosovo, where we find Drita, who have had a very, very good start to their Conference League campaign, unbeaten in their first 4 matches, back-to-back wins over Shamrock Rovers and Shkendija in their last 2 matches, and they've only conceded 2 goals in their opening 4 matches so far in the competition. They're now facing an AZ Alkmaar side who so far have won both of their matches at home, but have lost both of their matches away from home. They did, of course, beat Shelbourne in their last match on Matchday 4. Again, that was at home, though. So, interesting sort of setup coming into this one with AZ struggling on the road so far. Since then, it's been a poor run for the home side back home in Kosovo as they failed to win either of their domestic league matches, which included a home defeat to Balkani and then a draw against Ducadini this weekend. For AZ, they've not been doing much better. They lost to FC Twente and then beat Zwolle, but then drew at home to Europa League side Go Ahead Eagles this weekend. So neither of these sides coming into this with much momentum, it has to be said. In terms of the team news, no fresh concerns for either side as far as I can tell, and obviously, as you can imagine, no previous head-to-head between these two sides. On paper, this is by far the toughest test that Drita have had to face so far in this Conference League, but you still got to give them their due. They're unbeaten so far, and as we've said a couple of times already, AZ are on a very poor run, especially away from home. However, I still think on paper, the quality of the sides available to them, AZ should be going to Kosovo and getting the victory here. Don't rule out the upset, but I'm going for a 2-0 victory to the Dutch side. From Kosovo, we move over to Armenia, where we find Noah, who are going to be taking on Legia Warsaw. And we spoke about the poor form of Drita and AZ in the previous prediction. Well, it gets a lot worse when you get to these two sides, because Noah have no wins in their last 6. However, they did manage to get a 1-1 draw away to Aberdeen on Matchday 4 in the Conference League. For Legia, they're doing even worse than that, with no wins in in any of their last 9 matches in all competitions, losing at home to Sparta Prague in their previous fixture. And then they come into this game off the back of yet another defeat back in Poland this weekend. They're having an absolutely torrid time of things at the moment, are Legia, but as we've already mentioned, Noah aren't doing much better with those no wins in 6 for them. In terms of the team news, there are no fresh concerns for the home side coming into this, but from a Legia perspective, Same and Elatim remain out for them. If I had to pick a winner right here, right now, I probably would go for Legia, purely because of just the stature of the club, and you would expect a Polish team to beat an Armenian team. But Noah are doing very good so far in this competition. They have a decent home record. They're getting draws against teams that I would perceive to be better than them already. And I think if the Legia continue to play the way they've been playing, then Noah are going to get at least a point from this match. So that's the way I'm going to go with this one. My personal thought is a 1-1 draw, but I would say the Polish side would be favourites if there were to be a winner. Next up, it is Fiorentina taking on Dynamo Kiev. And, well, the run of teams that are completely out of form continues here because Fiorentina still have not won a single game in the Serie A so far this season. That is now 14 games in a row in Italy that they have not won. They've also lost all of their last 3 competitive matches in all competitions, losing at home to AEK Athens in the Conference League back on Matchday 4. They're now facing a Dynamo Kiev side who lost 2-0 against Ammonia Nicosia on Matchday 4, and up until this weekend had lost their previous 4 fixtures as well. However, they did bounce back with a victory coming into this fixture. So maybe, just maybe, there is a slight bit of momentum for one of these sides coming into this fixture. In terms of the team news, there is a big name absentee for both sides coming into this, as Fiorentina are going to be without German international Robin Gosens, and Dynamo Kiev, are going to be without Ukrainian legend Andrei Yarmolenko. Both of them are out injured for this fixture. There is a head-to-head record between these two sides, but unfortunately it dates back to 2015, so we can't really read too much into that. Back then, it was back-to-back victories for the Italian side, but like I say, we can't really say that that means they're going to win this one. What I would say, though, is that player for player, you would expect the Italians to come out on top here. They have obviously got victories in this Conference League so far, more than they certainly have in Italy so far this season. So I am going to go for a Fiorentina victory. I'm going to go for 3-1 to them, but just watch this space. They're an absolute stinker this season are Fiorentina, and to be honest with you, they probably need to start looking at what they're doing in Italy and maybe sacrificing this competition and concentrating on getting themselves back up the Serie A table, because if they keep going the way they're going, they'll be finding themselves relegated this season. Finally, as we move on to the 5th match of this video, we have a team that is actually on genuine form. That is the away side here in AEK Larnaca. They were able to get a draw on Matchday 4 away to Rijeka, which means they are unbeaten in the Conference League so far on 8 points. That's enough to see them into 7th place. Like I say, unbeaten in their opening 4 matches in this competition, but also unbeaten in their last 11 matches in all competitions, winning every single game back in Cyprus since Matchday 4. So they're having a great time of things at the moment. Unfortunately, their opponents are not doing so well, which is, of course, Hacken. It's back-to-back defeats for them in this Europa Conference League, losing to Strasbourg and then Zrinjski Mostar last time. And unfortunately, to make things even worse for them, in terms of a momentum perspective, the Swedish season is now over. You may remember they finished very low down in the Swedish table this season, but because their domestic season has finished, they now haven't played since Matchday 4 either. So in my opinion, a lot of reasons to consider that the away side are going to come away with at least a point from this match. In terms of the team news coming into this one, naturally there are no fresh concerns for Hacken since they haven't played for the last 2 weeks, whereas for the away side, they are still monitoring a few long-term injuries, but as things stand, they have no fresh concerns coming into this match from their previous game. What should be noted is that Hacken did win their previous match on this ground. That was against KuPS, but for Larnaca, 4 games in this competition so far without conceding a single goal. So I think it's going to be very, very tough for Hacken to get anything from this match. Don't rule out the possibility of another 0-0 draw here, because the Cypriot side have been very good at that. They've had 2 wins and 2 draws, and so far both of those draws have been 0-0 draws. So don't rule out the possibility of that one once again. But I just think with the momentum on their side, with the sharpness in their favour as well, I think they're going to go here and nick the victory. As I say, 0-0 a high possibility, but I'm going for a 1-0 win to AEK. Now we take our first trip to Poland for the week, which sees us see Jagiellonia Białystok taking on the Spanish side, Rayo Vallecano. Last time out for the hosts, it was a 1-0 victory over KuPS. However, since then, it's been back-to-back defeats back in Poland. For Vallecano, it was a shock defeat for them against Slovan Bratislava on Matchday 4. And that's moved them down all the way to 12th place in the Conference League as things stand. They then backed that up with defeat to Espanyol this weekend, and they've actually failed to win any of their last 5 matches back in La Liga. So it's not been a decent run for Vallecano in recent weeks. They did get a cup win in there, but that was against lower league opposition. And I know, granted, a Polish team in theory is about level with some of the Spanish teams, but I'm not so sure about Vallecano as things stand. In terms of the team news coming into this one, Jagiellonia have no fresh concerns to concern themselves with, and Vallecano are going to be without Oscar Trejo. He's picked up a hamstring injury and is going to likely be out for the remainder of this Conference League phase. With their strongest 11 available, I would have Vallecano as the favourites for this match, but so far, throughout this tournament, Vallecano have been rotating their team. It's why they've been dropping points, and Jagiellonia are so far unbeaten in this Europa Conference League. Now, granted, they've not been on the best of form domestically coming into this game, but they have a very good record in this competition. They've already managed to get a draw against French side Strasbourg, who are doing very, very well. And I think right now, if they are going to be their strongest team and Vallecano aren't going to play their first full team, I have to think that Jagiellonia are going to get at least a point from this match. So yet again, that is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but just be warned, Vallecano have had a long run of late goals in their fixtures over the last few weeks, whether it's for them or against them. So it wouldn't surprise me to see one side nick this late on, but I'm just going to go for that 1-1 draw. Next up, there really is only one place to start, and that is with the away side, Slovan Bratislava, because they were finally able to do it. We mentioned it every single video until it happened, but 12th time's the charm. After 11 straight European defeats in league phases, Slovan Bratislava finally picked up not just 1 point, but 3 points in that victory against Rayo Vallecano. They now travel to Macedonia to face a Shkendija side who aren't really doing great at the moment themselves. They lost 1-0 to Drita last time out and only have 4 points from their opening 4 games. Granted, that is enough to see them above of Slovan coming into this fixture. Overall form is with them as well, though. They've won both matches since Matchday 4 back in Macedonia, whereas Slovan probably celebrated their European victory a little bit too much as they've lost both of their matches in the lead up to this one, home and away. However, they have managed to hold on to their top spot in the Slovakian table at the moment, but they were 7 points clear. That has now come down to just 1 point as things stand. In terms of the team news, we have a suspension apiece coming into this one. Al Hassan is suspended for Shkendija and Ignatenko is out for Slovan Bratislava. Ultimately, this is just another really close game to call. There's not much between them, but on paper, you would expect Slovan to come out as the victors coming into this one. So, considering they finally got that victory under their belts, you'd have to say they're going to have some momentum coming into this one, certainly in terms of European form. I do expect it to be close once again, though. I'm going for a 2-0 victory to Slovan. Which then takes us to the league leaders of the Conference League, which is Samsunspor, and they're going to be hosting AEK Athens in the penultimate early kickoff this week. For Samsunspor, their 100% record has now gone. They drew away at Breidablik in Iceland on Matchday 4, but it has meant they have managed to maintain their top spot after a very strong start in their opening 3 fixtures. However, they have failed to win any of their last 4 matches in all competitions. Since Matchday 4, they have drawn with Adlanyaspor, then lost to Galatasaray this weekend. Whereas from an Athens perspective, they're on a great run of form. 9 games unbeaten, 6 wins in a row in all competitions, which includes that victory away at Fiorentina on Matchday 4. So, despite the fact that the league positions tell you that Samsunspor are first and Athens are in 10th place, it's hard to argue that the away side are probably coming into this as the ever so slight favourites for this match. In terms of the teams, there are no fresh injury concerns for Samsunspor coming into this one, but they do have a couple of long-term injuries. Few new concerns for the away side, though, as both Gankinovic and Zayn are both out for the Greek team. This is just another one of those games where I just think all three results are possible. The way Samsunspor have played in this Conference League so far, you could very easily see them winning, but given how poor they've been in recent weeks and how good Athens have been, you could very easily see them winning. So, naturally, as I always do in this situation, I'm just going to bottle it. I'm going to go for a draw, but I'm going to go for a high-scoring draw. Both of these sides are normally very good for scoring goals. So, I'm going to go for a 2-2, but we'll see how this one pans out. I think it could be a very, very entertaining match at the end of the opening kickoffs. And then finally, for those early kickoffs, we have Craiova hosting Sparta Prague. For Craiova, they are 5 games unbeaten, including wins on both Matchdays 3 and Matchday 4. Most impressively, that win on Matchday 4, where they're able to beat German side Mainz. For Sparta, they have won 4 of their last 5 matches, which includes a win over Legia Warsaw on Matchday 4, and then they also were able to beat fellow Europa Conference League side Sigma Omoluk this weekend coming into this fixture. So both sides are going to be feeling pretty confident coming into this. In terms of the team news, no fresh concerns for Craiova, but Zawinski, Zeleny and Holly are all doubts for the away side coming into this, where on paper you would expect Sparta Prague to be the favourites for this match. But again, you look at the results that Craiova have had in recent weeks, getting the win over Rapid Vienna, getting the win over Mainz. Both matches you would have fancied them to lose, let alone win. So my gut is telling me that they are again going to get something from this match. So it's certainly not out of the question that they could very easily get something from this match. But my gut is telling me with how good of a form Sparta Prague are in right now, they are the side that is going to edge it. As I've said with basically every single game in these early kickoffs, I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Sparta Prague. That is going to be it for the early kickoffs. Before we move on to the later ones, let's see what you guys have been saying over on the community page regarding what is a very, very difficult week in the Conference League. You have gone for the following. I think for the first time ever, we've seen a massive majority in favour of a draw when it comes to Breidablik and Shamrock Rovers. 57% going for the draw there. Basically, or not even basically, literally everybody thinks AZ Alkmaar are going to beat Drita. Basically, everyone thinks Legia are going to go to Noah and get the victory. Obviously, I disagree with that one. Most people think that Fiorentina are beating Dynamo Kiev. Very close between Hacken and AEK, but most have gone for Hacken in terms of a majority. Majority have also gone for Vallecano to win at Legia. Basically, everyone thinks Slovan are beating Shkendija. Majority have gone for Samsunspor to beat Athens, and the majority have gone for Sparta Prague to beat Craiova. Again, very, very tough round of early fixtures in the Conference League. What I can tell you is that on paper, they do get a little bit easier in our later kickoffs, but not by a lot. So as we move on now to those later kickoffs, we can get started right away with one of those games that I do think is a little bit easier to call, and that is Aberdeen taking on Strasbourg. Where if you remember back to our Matchday 4 video, Aberdeen were actually on a really good run of form going into their Matchday 4 match, so much so that I predicted them to beat Noah in that match. They did, however, end up drawing that game 1-1. Meanwhile, Strasbourg were taking on Crystal Palace of the Premier League, beating them 2-1 and moving up into second place, level on points with leaders Samsunspor going into the final 2 matches. Normally, that would be enough to convince me that Strasbourg are going to come away with the victory here, but there are a couple of things to still consider. Firstly, Aberdeen, despite drawing, obviously means that they are still unbeaten, and that good run of form that they were in the lead up to Matchday 4 has continued in the lead up to Matchday 5, because they're now actually 8 games unbeaten in all competitions. Meanwhile, Strasbourg have actually lost both of their matches since Matchday 4, going down to Brest and then Toulouse in Ligue 1 over the last couple of weeks. So maybe it's not out of the question that Aberdeen gets something from this match. In terms of the team news, Malloy is out for Aberdeen, whereas Ouattara is out for the French side. Again, it's certainly not out of the question that Aberdeen can get a result here. They obviously need to get a result if they're going to find any sort of points in these final 2 matches to get themselves into a playoff spot. I believe defeat for them here could guarantee that they are eliminated at this point in time. But with Strasbourg in a top 8 spot, wanting to nail down their progression to the next round, and with them being the stronger side on paper, I am still going to go for the Strasbourg victory. But just be warned, Aberdeen still on that decent run of form. I'm going for a 3-1 win to the French side. Narrowing the gap ever so slightly with our next fixture. We've gone from Aberdeen in 33rd to Hamrun Spartans in 30th and Strasbourg in 2nd, down to Shakhtar in 4th for our next game. For the Spartans, they were able to pick up their first points of the league season by beating Lincoln Red Imps 3-1 on matchday 4. However, they are, like I say, the only points they've secured so far after losing their first 3 matches. They're now facing the Ukrainian side, who won 2-1 away to Shamrock Rovers last time out. They have won 3 of their 4 fixtures so far in the Conference League, and they are unbeaten in their last 7 matches in all competitions. However, it should be noted that they have drawn their previous 2 matches since their victory in Ireland. For the Spartans, they actually haven't played as their domestic campaign has been on pause up until this weekend coming. So no fixtures for Spartans since matchday 4. So at least they'll be a little bit fresher. But as I always say, sharpness is then going to be more in favour of the Ukrainian side. There is still one player that is going to be missing for Spartans though, as Polito is suspended for this match following his red card in the game against Red Imps last time out. For Shakhtar Donetsk, Riznik is a doubt for them, but currently is expected to be fit and available for this match. To be honest, anything but a Ukrainian win would be a major, major shock here. I'm just going to go for a comfortable Shakhtar win, and I'm going to go for 3-0 to the side from Donetsk. Oh, wasn't it good to have 2 relatively easy fixtures to start off the late kickoffs, and then we drop straight back in to the difficult ones once again. And as we move over to Finland now for KuPS taking on Lausanne here. Just 2 points separating these 2 sides coming into this one, and both sides lost on matchday 4. For the home side, it was defeat to Legia, and for the away side, it was a defeat to Lech Poznan. So both sides were losing in Poland last time out. Since then, KuPS haven't played since their domestic season has concluded, whereas Lausanne come into this off of a defeat and then a 0-0 draw. So one side has no momentum because they haven't played. One side has no momentum because they have played and not done very good in those fixtures. So it's tough to call once again. The only sort of identifier we can really use to separate these 2 sides is that both sides have played Breidablik so far in this competition. And in those matches, Lausanne beat Breidablik 3-0, whereas KuPS could only manage a 0-0 draw. That being said, so far in this Conference League, KuPS are unbeaten at home, whereas Lausanne only have a 1-0 away to Hamrun Spartans, which is a team you would expect them to beat, and they only won that game 1-0, so their away record isn't great coming into this fixture. In terms of the team news, no fresh concerns for either side. My instincts tell me that Lausanne are going to take it, but again, I'm not very confident about it. I certainly think another 0-0 is on the cards here, but I'm going for a 1-0 victory to the away side. I think it's going to be another very, very close one. Which then takes us straight to Poznan, because we now have Lech taking on Mainz. As we've literally just mentioned, last time out, Lech Poznan getting the 2-0 victory over Lausanne, whereas Mainz were losing 1-0 to Craiova, and that has sparked a run of terrible form for them, as they have now lost 3 games in a row without scoring a single goal. Obviously, firstly to Craiova, and then Freiburg, and then Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga over the past 3 weeks. For Lech Poznan, they are unbeaten in their last 5. However, they could only manage a 2-2 draw to Cracovia this weekend. So even they're not in the absolute best form, but 5 games unbeaten against a side that has lost 3 in a row without scoring. In my opinion, that gives you the early advantage to the Polish team. In terms of the injuries, there are a few fresh concerns for the home side, with all of Milic, Lagiello and Thorgdarson all out with injuries in recent matches. Similar sort of story for the away side, as both Mwene and Zentner are out for them. To be fair to Mainz, they have obviously been fairly decent in this competition so far. They're up in 5th place as things stand, but with their last few weeks and obviously their overall Bundesliga form, where if you didn't know, they're right in the relegation zone in the Bundesliga at the moment, with that form now starting to leak potentially into their Europa League campaign as well, I think there's a very, very good chance that Lech Poznan come away with the victory here. Obviously, Mainz should be considered the favourites for this match. Player for player, league versus league, you would expect the German side to win. But I've got to go with what I think the recent form guide is telling me, and that is that Lech Poznan, particularly at home, are the side to be beaten here, and I'm going for a 2-1 win to the Poles. Now we head off to the Lincoln Red Imps, who fell 3-1 to Hamrun Spartans on matchday 4, although it should absolutely be noted that they were leading in the game until a red card in the second half And from that point onwards, everything fell apart and they ended up losing that game 3-1. They're now going to be hosting Sigma Umaluk, who last time out got a very important victory over Celje on Matchday 4, but unfortunately have failed to back that up in their domestic campaign, losing both matches back in Czechia, of course, including the one that we mentioned just a couple of minutes ago in that defeat to Sparta Prague this weekend. In terms of the Red Imps back in Gibraltar, as you'd expect, it's back to winning ways for them. They tend to win near enough every single game in Gibraltar, and that included a 4-0 victory over a team quite literally called Hound Dogs. What a great team name. They beat them 4-0 this weekend. In terms of the team news, obviously that red card for Red Imps, that man is going to be suspended. His name is Torilla. And well, after what happened after his red card, they might be thankful that he's going to be missing for this game. For Sigma, Dumitrescu and Yasser are out for them. It has to be said that Lincoln Red Imps so far haven't lost either of their home matches so far, but Sigma have won their last 2 matches in Europe, and again, on paper, should absolutely be coming away with the victory here. I said last time that I was going to start showing some more respect to Lincoln Red Imps, and they paid me back by losing to Hamrun Spartans, so unfortunately, I'm going to put the disrespect back on them once again here, and I'm going to go for the Sigma victory. I'm going to go for 3-1, but you never know. They're a strong side on their day. But, again, realistically, a side from Czechia should be beating a side from Gibraltar. We'll just have to see. Next up, we're heading back to Poland for our third and final time of the night, as Rakow are going to be taking on Drinski in this one. And speaking of my disrespect, that is exactly what I showed Rapid Vienna when they faced Rakow on Matchday 4, and I was right to do so, because Rakow come away with a 4-1 victory over the Austrian side, and they've now actually won all of their last 4 matches in a row, domestically and in this competition, in the lead up to this game against Mostar. For them, it was also a victory on Matchday 4 as they were beaten Hacken, but it's been a loss, a win and a draw for them since that victory, and they are travelling to an unbeaten Polish side in this competition so far. And I think it is going to be a real big ask for Mostar to come away with any sort of result in this fixture. Once again, no fresh concerns as far as I could find leading up to this one. As always, let me know in the comments if I have missed any important injury news coming into these fixtures. So all we've really got to go on is what I've been saying throughout this mini preview, which is I believe that Rakow are the favourites for this match. A chance to make their top 8 qualification basically secure with just 1 game to go. I think they're going to pull it off here. And I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory to Rakow. Now we do have Rapid Vienna, who, if I'm being quite honest with you, don't even need me to disrespect them anymore, because right now I feel like they're flat out disrespecting themselves with the run of form they are in. They are rock bottom of the Conference League as things stand with 4 defeats in a row, and that's exactly the sort of form they're in all competitions, losing all of their last 4 matches, including that game to Rakow in the lead up to this match now on Matchday 4, where they're going to be taking on an Ammonia Nicosia side who have won their last 3 games in a row, which includes victory over Dynamo Kiev on Matchday 4, and then that moves them up into the playoff spots. And like I say, they've won both games back in Cyprus since as well. So for me, I look at these 2 sides right now. On paper, Rapid Vienna absolutely will be considered the favourites, but you can't look past that form guide and tell me that Ammonia Nicosia aren't going to come away with some sort of result from this match. In terms of the team news, what I would say is that Boller, Scholler and Yao are all out for Rapid at the moment, and to be honest, again, I think they are going to see some rotation from them in this competition. They've done so throughout the competition so far, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them do so again. They play their stronger side with the thought of maybe we can still get into the playoffs. Maybe they then come away with a victory here, but with no fresh concerns for the Cypriot side, with the form that the Cypriots are in, and with the form that the Austrians are in, I simply have to go for an Ammonia victory here. Again, it sounds stupid, but Rapid Vienna are absolutely 100% the favourites for this match, but I'm going for Ammonia Nicosia, and I'm going for a 2-1 victory to them. As always, we shall see. Penultimate game then is Rijeka and Celje, and we'll start with the away side once again, because despite actually losing on Matchday 4 against Sigma, they have still managed to stay in 3rd place in the Conference League so far, and a win here could potentially seal themselves a top 8 spot and progression to the last 16 with just 1 game to go. They've continued to not be their best though since that defeat, with only winning 1 of their 3 games played domestically since that defeat to Sigma. However, that victory was this weekend in the lead up to this match. Meanwhile, for the Croatian side that are the home side in this game, they are 5 games unbeaten in all competitions, winning their last 2 coming into this one. So, decent run of form for them coming into this. In terms of the team news, only one piece of significant news I could find for this match, and that is that Hacken is suspended for Selle after picking up 3 yellow cards in his opening 4 matches. No fresh concerns for Rijeka coming into this game. The one stat that does concern me surrounding this game is that so far in this competition, Rijeka have only scored 2 goals, but they've also only conceded 2 goals. So whatever happens in this match, yet again, I think it's going to be another really close affair. Selle are normally good for a goal, so I am going to give them one, and I would make them the ever so slight favourites. But given Rijeka's 5-game unbeaten run, I'm going to give them a point in this game. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And then finally, we head off to Ireland for our final match. As it's a battle between the Irish and the English as Shelbourne host Crystal Palace. Shelbourne, unfortunately for them, it's just 1 point from their first 4 matches in the Conference League, and that came in the opening match of this competition. They lost to AZ Alkmaar on match day 4, a side that Crystal Palace beat on match day 3. And let's not forget that Crystal Palace are now up into the Champions League places in the Premier League as things stand after their victory over Fulham this weekend. So they're on a very good run of form. But it should be noted that they have lost 2 of their first 4 games in this competition, including losing to Strasbourg on match day 4. So it's certainly not out of the question that Shelbourne get something from this game, but again, quality of the 2 sides, you would expect the Premier League team to come out on top. In terms of the team news, there is one major concern for Crystal Palace, as they're probably the best right back in the Premier League. Munoz is out for them, with Nathaniel Klein potentially set to fill in as he did at the weekend. No fresh concerns for Shelbourne, whose domestic season is of course already over, as we mentioned with Shamrock Rovers in the first preview of this video. What I would say though is I would expect Crystal Palace, even with changes to their starting lineup, to come out as the winners of this match. On paper they are a far superior team to their opposition, and they need to pick up points very, very fast if they're going to get a top 8 spot with just 2 games to go. I am obviously going to go for a Crystal Palace win to round off this video, and I'm going to go for 2-0 to the Eagles. That is going to be it for today's video. As always, thank you very much for watching if you've made it all the way through this far. Before I leave you, let's round off what the community has been saying regarding these 9 late kickoffs in the Conference League, and you have gone for the following. Majority have Strasbourg winning at Aberdeen. Majority have Shakhtar winning at Spartans. Majority have Lausanne winning at KuPS. Majority do have Mainz winning at Lech Poznan, but it is significantly closer. Majority have Sigma beating Lincoln Red Imps. Very, very close between Rakow and Zrinjski Mostar. 41% apiece, with 18% going for the draw. Unsurprisingly, the majority still think that Rapid Vienna are going to beat Ammonia Nicosia, even though I do disagree. But like I say, you still have to have Rapid as favourites for that match. Again, close between Rijeka and Selle, with the majority just going for Rijeka. And basically everyone thinks Crystal Palace is going to beat Shelbourne. As always, a massive thank you very much for watching. Thank you for everyone who's got involved with the community polls for today's video. A reminder that I have now posted all of the community polls for the Premier League and La Liga for this weekend, so make sure to check out the link in the description if you haven't done so already to get your votes in for all 20 matches taking place this weekend in England and in Spain. And a final thank you very much for watching once again. I will see you Friday morning.